If you did know, what would you say? We're going to find out on today's podcast.
Hi, my name is Michael Johnson. I'm a ballroom dance professional, a life coach, and a peak performance expert. I'm part of a group of motivated people who are dedicated to attaining emotional mastery and unlocking our full potential. We've realized life is a dance. The ups and downs can spin you out of your mind, but it's time to take back control. It's time to become a lifer. We don't believe others are responsible for how we feel. In fact, we don't believe anyone can make us feel anything. We are a new breed of overachievers. Emotional mastery is our journey, and unlocking our full potential is the key. Welcome to the journey. We are lifers, and this is Magic for Life.
What's up, lifers? Michael Johnson here with the Magic for Life podcast. I'm so glad you joined me today. And today, you get to hear one of the things I've been teaching for years, and that's simple. If you did know, what would you say? Now, if you're a teacher, if you have children, if you are sharing some piece of information with somebody else that they don't know, there's a very interesting idea here that you can pass on. And the idea comes from, well, we'll dig into that. So the idea is this. As we teach somebody something, they essentially don't know what that thing is, right? And so you share with them an idea and they take on the idea. Then they start to run into challenges. And one of the things that I've learned along the way is to ask this question. They'll ask me, what is the solution to this challenge, to this problem? And I will respond, well, what do you think it is? Now, this is a funny thing because I'm the expert, right? So they came to me to be the expert, and that's cool. And I get that. But my job is to help you learn it. And so the best way I can help you to learn it is to be able to dig out what you do know and be able to help you reconnect and re-find what it is that you're learning and what it is that you know already. Because if you can make the connections, then everything's better. Now, let's kick back to this idea and this word meta. If you've been watching the podcast, you've heard me mention meta before. So what is meta? Well, if you look up the definition, right, if we do the whole Google thing, then you can find out that meta stands for after or beyond, or modern. In modern days, it's about or a level up, right? A level up from where you're at. And so if you were to talk about meta, I like the word about, right? If we're trying to say, okay, what does meta mean? Meta is about everything, about all things in your world, everything going on, right? So if you were to have a meta perspective, it's quite simple. A meta perspective would be all about stepping outside of yourself. And I believe that's third person, right? So if you could actually say, okay, here I am, Michael, sitting in my seat, and I'm going to put myself over here, and I'm going to be Michael looking at Michael out here in a third person perspective, maybe looking down like you were watching a football game in a huge arena. And what do I look like sitting here giving this podcast? I know it's a little trippy, right? So what is that position, right? That position is a meta position. Now, when you're teaching somebody else something that you know or sharing something that you know, maybe you're a great business person, maybe you're a great accountant, maybe you are great at underwater basket weaving. I don't know. But whatever it is that you're great at and you're sharing with somebody else, then what is it that you're doing? Well, you're taking a meta perspective, a meta positioning with the person that doesn't know the thing that you're teaching them. And as you do that, they look to you to get help. Now, if you have taught something or if you have worked with somebody that's challenging, then what it ends up typically happening is you teach them the thing, you show them how to do it, you walk them step by step through it, and you give them the tools that they need. And if you're a great teacher, then you work on multiple ways to be able to share with them how to do that thing. But if you have ever been in a teaching position, it's very simple to understand, because we give them this piece of information, we give this knowledge out, and inevitably a challenge comes back. And the challenge is a new challenge. And it might not even be a challenge that you've recognized before, because their challenge comes from their culmination of their experiences in their life. And so as they go through and try to execute the thing that you're giving to them, they are having to overcome and learn through their challenges, through their experiences, through the things that they know in order to learn the thing that you're teaching them. Now, it's different with everybody. Now, our best teachers, the best teachers we've ever had, if you look back at all of your schooling, all of your education, or any mentors that you've had, the best education we had are the ones that actually made us learn it ourselves. The ones that actually got us to understand it ourselves, to connect to it somehow through experiences that we have. And that was giving us a meta perspective. Right. And some of the worst teachers that we've probably had through our career on any subject are the ones that are they just go, here's this, do it. And you go, but I don't understand why. They go, I don't care, do this. Right. Those teachers that wrote on the board the notes as they went, and they had a little sheet that they followed, and they wrote a note, and then you wrote it on your paper. They wrote a note, and then you wrote it on your paper. This is not good. This is not good. That style needs to go away. We all learn slightly differently. We all learn with different strategies, and that's another conversation. But learning from a meta perspective can actually be useful in a lot of different ways. You don't always have to have somebody or something outside of you. In fact, the best teachers are the ones that help you find from the inside the answer. And as you go along and you have challenges, you've got to actually come up with a better SOP. I talked about that in another podcast, which is your standard operating procedure. How do you operate in your standard operating procedure, right? Meaning every single time something like this happens, this is what I do. Well, let's kick back to a lovely book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And one of the things that he did was go around and interview all of these masters at business and at what they were doing. They had also mastered other things because business, life, family, relationships, all that stuff, it all goes together. It all comes together. And the same type of skills that we would use to make all of those things come together are the same skills that we would use to learn something new. So he went and interviewed all these greats. Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, Rockefeller. He went and interviewed all of them and figured out what their secrets to their successes were. And he wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich. And so that book has been a classic for ages, right? If you want to find out a way to get a free copy of Think and Grow Rich, send me an email at info@magicforlife.com, and we'll show you how to get a free copy. Right? We'll get you one. Okay. So this book will change your life. It'll change the world. And so honestly, as you look at it, what he did was he went and got meta perspectives. So in the book, he actually talks a little bit about how you can actually self coach yourself. And so this is a really big deal. It's a really big deal because if you can step out of yourself and now go into a position where you might have better perspective, this is what we're looking for, right? We're looking for a way to have better perspective. So if you have a problem, if you have something that you're dealing with, some issue that is the challenge, then what we want to do is we want to think about that challenge. We want to say, okay, what is this challenge that I'm having now? What would I do? And so I always ask anybody I'm teaching, anybody I'm working with, if you did know, what would you say? Because the first thing that oftentimes comes up is, I don't know, right? We have been sort of accidentally conditioned to go, I don't know, let me find somebody else. I don't know, let me look outside, right? And so what we can start to do is we can start to actually look within. And so if we can start to create a standard operating procedure of, if I did know, what would I say? If I did know, what would I say? And we start there. And now we come up with the ideas or the solutions that go with, if I did know, what would I say? Now, when you've exhausted those possibilities, now you can say, all right, I don't know if these answers are possible solutions. So let me take some new answers. Well, how can I do that? Maybe I don't have the resources. Maybe I can't talk to the guru. Maybe you can't get me, right? Maybe you can't get that. But what you can do is you've listened to the podcast, you've listened to me speak, you've listened to all the stuff that I've put out there. There's tons of content on all of our podcasts on YouTube, on iTunes, on Spotify. So you've heard me speak. So you can say to yourself, well, if Michael were here, what would he say about this challenge? And that's stepping outside of yourself. That's putting yourself in a meta position. And so if you take that meta position and say, now, if Michael was here, what would he say? And I'm interested. All right. So if you have a challenge right now that you're going through, what would I say? I want you to think about that. And if you want, you can comment it down below. I'd love to hear. What would I say to you? If you were having a specific challenge, you've been listening to the podcast, you've been listening to what you're doing, comment that down below, right? And let me know what I would say. Don't worry, nobody's judging. Some people just look at the comments so that they can relate and connect and maybe find a solution to something they're doing. So if you have a challenge, write the challenge and write down, if Michael was here, what would he say? Or if you have another mentor, if you have somebody else that you look up to, if so-and-so was here, what would they say to me? How would they solve this problem? And ask that about 2, 3, 4 different people. If so-and-so was here, what would their solution be? So that's what I want you to do today. That's going to help change everything. Think from a meta position. Think from a meta. What would so-and-so do if they were here? How would so-and-so help me? And if you really want to get crazy, you can go for it really and say, okay, let me form a mastermind group, an imaginary mastermind group in my head, because that's what Napoleon Hill told us to do in Think and Grow Rich, right? Form an imaginary mastermind of the best, the greats. You don't even have to know them. It might help to know something about them, might help to read their biography. That's why it's so great to read biographies, right? Or even books of what subject you're thinking about, right? And then you would say, what would they tell me if they were here? Right? So in this particular instance, we're talking meta about meta. So you can say, well, if Michael was here, he would say, think about it from the outside. I don't know. Okay, if you did know, what would you say? And then come up with some more answers. Guys, use this idea and this concept of meta positioning to help you out. Okay, so let's take some action today and really do something positive with it. So thanks for joining me on the podcast. Make sure you click like below. If you know somebody that this would help, please share it with them. You can share it by hitting the share button and sending them a link in text, or you can send it to them in an email. But don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you get notified every time we put out new content. And I would love to hear from you. If you have any wonderful things to say or any comments, put them in the comment below, and we will see you on the next podcast. And take care every minute.
Hey lifers, we expect upgrades to the base operating functions of the things like our phones, cars, and even refrigerators. Why then has it not been made a priority that we upgrade the operating systems of our emotional states? We dance around the subject of emotional mastery from a young age. We have so much more knowledge in today's world, yet we're still teaching outdated methods of emotional education, if any are being taught at all. It's time for a change. It's time for an upgrade to our emotional education. Let me help you learn how to do that. Pick up your free copy of Every Minute at everyminutebook.com.